you have to look at what's the motivator for the kid. The kids right now are thinking about what can they do now to get somewhere else. It's no longer like live in the moment and enjoy just playing the game. It's how am I building my resume? How am I getting exposure? And that's been fed to them since 9 years old, and we're fighting against that. And so now it's what can my high school team do for me to get me to the next level? And logistically, we get such a small window where they're really ours. We're trying to win, so I don't care about showcasing Johnny. And the colleges can't come see our games because they're playing. So there's a lot of things working against us that make it hard to sell a kid that we're going to be the avenue to college. And I think all of us, I'm sure, have some element of connections to the next level and with the travel coaches to help facilitate that. But I think you're fighting that. So when a kid shows up at some high school and that coach isn't well connected in some way, what's his motivations to really take that as serious when his travel team is, getting recognition and he's, doing that. I think that that's where we see kids get pulled away from the high school game or not take it with the same seriousness.
And just to piggyback off that, Worm, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Our access to our kids, can be very stifling. A lot of us might not be able to work out a season with our kids, or might not be allowed due to our league rules or whatever it is. Like, our kids want to train, they want to practice, they want to get better. I mean, even the multi-sport kids, they still want to do baseball activities in the fall and winter time. And some, from a high school standpoint, some of us aren't legally allowed to provide that for our schools. So I think that that's an area that travel ball, they can go to the facility, they can get their lessons, they can play extra games, they can do a lot of things that, we're tied to March 1 to, early June kind of timeline. And then the kids leave us and we don't see them again for a long time. So
I would say the biggest thing I think is the high school season is probably most comparable to a college experience, especially in league play. So, you're trying to get guys out. So you're throwing curveballs, you're setting them up with a changeup, you're throwing inside with a fastball. You're kind of playing the game of baseball. Whereas summer ball, if you want to get 92 on the radar gun, by all means, that's going to get you to the next level. But if you keep pumping 92, if you're good, you're going to get a hit off that guy if he just throws fastballs by you. So I try to tell the kids, yeah, I get the summer side of it and the travel ball, but I think if you kind of take it seriously on the league season, it's going to kind of present itself as you get into the college if you aspire to play at the college level.
If your first goal, the recruiting process doesn't work the way you think it does, that coaches are just going to come out and recruit you. First, you have to recruit coaches. That's the first step. You have to make sure they know who the heck you are, where you're going to be, where you go to school, measurables, all that stuff. And then you hope that that's going to attract them to want to come out, check you out, watch you play. Twitter and Instagram and these things, that can sometimes do that for you. The coaches get familiarized with a kid through Twitter or Instagram, and now they want to go see them play, in the summertime, fall, whatever it might be. So, and also for guys that might be flying under the radar, I think that's one thing, Danny, you guys do really well is, you don't just promote the slam dunk kid, the 1% guys, they're going to get recruited. I mean, they're good. They're really, really good. They don't need, as much social media help. There's other kids out there that they're good players, but they're not jumping off the page. They're not, but they deserve a home and they deserve to be recruited. And I think PBR does a really good job of promoting those kids and not just saying, oh, here's the kid who throws 94 in high school. Well, the kid who throws 94 in high school, all you have to do is just give out his cell phone number to coaches. That it's over. He's recruited. It's the kid that throws 82 but can really carve, really knows what he's doing. He's the kid that you got to promote and make sure the coaches are aware of him, because he needs the help. And we know he can play, and we believe he can play. And an organization like PBR sees that, and that allows college coaches to see that kid pop up more frequently and get looks that he might normally not have gotten. So.
I always tell guys in the high school game, I'm not developing from a mechanic. I'm not a swing coach during the season because we're competing, so a lot of those tools I think are nice. I think to maybe show what the kid is doing objectively, whether it's just a radar gun. I mean, there's the most basic level of technology, so I think that, that was one of the first things I made sure we had, so you could objectively measure what kids are doing in tryouts. A lot of it to create a sense that we're making objective decisions about who makes the team when you're making tough decisions. So I think for me, selfishly, having something like a Rapsodo would help in that process. And it helps me communicate to coaches what some of those numbers are. And the more I'm educated on it, the more that, we can, I think if we want to prepare our kids for the next level, which is using this technology, I think we're doing a disservice if we're not exposing them to it. But then we come back to, okay, who has the money for these things and how are you going to actually use it? Checking the box and buying one. Okay. And that's the first thing I told my pitching guy. I'm like, okay, tell me how you're going to use it every day in practice. Because if we're going to spend $5-6 grand for this thing, I want to make sure it's not pulled out once a year, because I'll absolutely find a way to fundraise and do this for us because I think there's value, but we need to find a way to apply it. And if you can apply the technology in a high school practice, then do it. But I think that's a challenge, and I think that there's probably not many programs that realistically are applying that technology in a meaningful way beyond just saying, oh, I have, hit tracks in our batting cage,
The more we delay using it, we do it to our detriment, but we don't have the time that a college program has or professional organization has to really utilize the data, because to your point, the data is useless if you're not going to apply it or allow it to inform your coaching and your instruction. Dan, you talked about that convention you held and it wasn't well attended. The virtual convention, the ABCA went to, the biggest takeaway for me was that a move in coaching is shifting away from overt or direct instruction to just changing the kid's environment and them making the adjustments on their own. And the technology helps in that regard. Justin, to your point earlier, our schools do have the resources, maybe not, for 5 hack attacks at practice or for Rapsodo for hitting and pitching, but we are in most of us are at an advantage, and we do have generous alumni who might really get into this. It's kind of sexy to say, hey, can you buy us this technology to help improve our team and our individual player development?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are, Werman, Eddie, are both hitting it. We're lucky. I mean, obviously we fundraise, tremendously. I have a great group of guys that help me with that, and we've been able to purchase, pretty much anything we've wanted. But I think, like to Kyle's point, we don't purchase anything unless we know we're going to use it, and also we know how to collect the data and actually, work with it. For us, like last year or 2 years ago, I guess it was, we got a Rapsodo. We're also blast, sensors on our bats. The way we use it though for the blast sensors, our kids get them and have them year round, and then we have the team report. So like our kids, I'm not able to work out with my players like in the out of season. Like I could work out with a handful of them, I guess, by league rules, but we can't have practices. So what I can do is every week on Monday morning, I send out the data on the blast reports, and it's almost like I can give kids hitting lessons without even seeing them play, like just looking at the numbers.
We're in the confidence building business, right? So, the data, these Rapsodo hit tracks doesn't measure between the ears, doesn't measure in the chest, right? But I'm guilty of it every year where we get into a gym like you're talking about, and every year, this year it's going to happen to me. I'm going to get fooled by a kid in a batting cage. Like, then we step foot on turf and it's like, these balls they're lazy fly balls, right? It happens to me. I go with my coach inside the gym, like, hey, little Johnny looks great. And then 3 weeks later, it's, like, damn it. Every year one kid fools me. But I think, this time of year, especially, for most of us being inside for the next, 3 to 4 weeks, I think, just, really, pushing home that competitive atmosphere that Ed was talking about. It's all about setting, right? I mean, if you break out and you send, kids to their respective coaches, like that's great and all, but towards the end of practice, you got to have some sort of, competition going on. The best part of, my practice, indoor practices, is the 30 minutes before. So, and I probably shouldn't do this, but they get in there and they play 3-on-3 basketball for 20 minutes and they go harder at that than they do during practice. But I love it. I mean, they're competing, but it depends. Like if certain kids touch the ball, I'm like, hey, go sit down.
We also do 21 ounce, and I keep harping on the fact that it takes 21 ounce to win a high school baseball game, and they realize that how hard it is to go through 21 outs and not make one error. And we start back, and I'm pretty hard on them. So, you know, it could be a quick little bobble and they'll throw it over to first base. And I'll say, you know, safe, start over. We're back to 0. Sometimes it takes us a long, you know, half an hour to get through it, but I want to hammer the point in that, you know, if you're not going to make 21 outs consistently throughout a ball game, then you're going to have a hard time winning baseball games.
I think that's important. You know, we talked about what a high school coach can do to get buy-in from the players. I think they want to see that we're invested, that we have a plan for their development, for the teams. I mean, those are the little things when you make practice fun, you know, which competitive things are fun. When you make it meaningful, where you're not standing 10 guys in a row waiting for your one swing, you know, that's how kids quit and retire at 12 years old. You know, if you make it meaningful, they're going to want to invest in it. And if they see that investment from you in your planning, I think that they're going to get that buy-in. So, and you know what, I think, you know, all of us, you know, are hoping to send kids off to college every year. And guess what they're going to see when they get to school at the collegiate level? They're going to have a grinder of a roster. They're trying to compete just to get on the field, where they've never had to compete before at some schools. You know, your average high school shortstop is the shortstop and never questions that. You know, a lot of our schools, that's not the case, which I think is a valuable thing for our players to learn, that they have to earn those opportunities. But, you know, the average kid that gets recruited as a college shortstop has never had to earn that playing time. And they get to college, and now they are one of 2 shortstops that were in that recruiting class, and one of maybe 4 overall, including a grown man who's now 22 years old, who is showing them the ropes. And they don't know how to handle that. They've never experienced that before, you know? And so, you know, part of our job is to create that environment where nothing's anointed. They earn everything. Even the superstar has to earn that opportunity.
You know, I'm going to try to light up the radar gun in the summertime, because we know that a lot of times that gets you recruited, it gets you attention. And I might be 1-8 to the plate, and guys might be stealing second and third on my catcher, and I don't really care because I'm lighting up the radar gun. The minute I get to college, that pitching coach is not going to be okay with that. You know, if every time you walk a guy, it turns to a triple because you're 1-8 to the plate trying to throw as hard as you can, that's not going to play. But it plays and it can sometimes play in the travel ball world, you know, because the animal that we created, you know, it's been created.
Yeah. I think that if the players could know, or if we could tell them, like, if I could say, hey guys, when I got to pro baseball, you would be amazed at how much we practiced first and third plays, bump plays, running the bases, backing up bases. I mean, literally like an hour and a half every practice was going over these things. And when you think, if the highest, you know, at the professional level, if that's an importance, it's got to be really an importance at the college level. Why is it? And like, you would think that it would be really important to show that on the you know, summer circuit.
If a guy's working out in another facility, right, I need to know that you threw an elongated bullpen on Tuesday. Like, yes, my gut visceral reaction is to say, like, what the heck are you doing? But I try to, like, ingest it and say, all right, that's fine. I appreciate you letting me know. Like, well, we're not going to throw another bullpen on Thursday. You just threw a bullpen on Tuesday. And then we have a big conversation off to the side after practice and say, like, hey, like, you know, ultimately we're going to put the lineup together. So if you want to throw bullpens and I'm the one who's looking at the bullpens, you should probably want to be available for Episcopal Academy's bullpen session, not, you know, your side session. And I don't think that's a, you know, dig at the training facility. I think it's just like, hey, like, let's have a conversation. I think if we're all looking out for the player, I don't see why anyone would have any problem just being like, yeah, all right, cool. Like, he's going to throw with me on Thursday at Episcopal. And if you guys want to do some touch work and do the Jaeger bands and do other, you know, body stuff, let's kind of work together. So I think that's kind of something personally I've experienced as a little bit of a hardship in terms of kind of maintaining these guys' arms, because ultimately that's the thing that allows you to play baseball. You need it to play.
Our job is to keep these kids healthy. And I think my biggest fear, you know, is doing something that's going to jeopardize one of our guys' arms. You know, I think the classic stereotype is a high school coach that runs this guy out there for 140 pitches to win the state title, and then that kid never pitches again. You know, and I remember being at the college level, having a big recruit, and, you know, our pitching coach, like, getting fired from this local town because he was blowing up the high school coach for throwing this guy, and he's like in the press, getting worn out because, he's stepping in on the high school. Everybody's getting all pissed off. But at the end of the day, like, these kids have a bigger future than what we're doing. We want to give them a great experience, have them compete, let them be part of something that matters, and I think that, representing your team for a title, I think matters to these kids, in this small window that they're high school students, and in 10 years they'll look back and it was just high school. But, in that window, we have to also be mindful of keeping them healthy, so I think, as Tom mentioned, our communication as coaches, we're not, it's not all us. There's this whole ecosystem around us with travel ball and private facilities and velo programs, whatever these guys are doing, we need to make sure there's an open, communication with that player, that they feel comfortable telling us, that we're not creating an environment where they feel pressure to have to throw, in addition to what they're already doing, because they might get cut if they don't or something like that. I think they need to know that that's safe, that they can communicate in that way. And then we got to be able to structure and have flexibility in our plans to allow that to work. You can't have, such a rigid structure that if a kid is doing something a little bit different or has a different thing, is a two-way guy or has something like that, that he can't participate in the way he needs to.
Obviously I am 100% on board with protecting arms, so don't take this the wrong way. We're very, very cautious of our guys, but we do also try to explain to the kids, and like Danny, as a former pro pitcher, and Justin, pitched in college, obviously, you guys can probably relate to this, is explaining to a high school kid there's a difference between being a little bit sore and like you not being able to throw, like you're hurt or you need the days off. Like we'll have kids like they're on 3 days rest from like a 25, and they're like, I feel a little tender today, and they don't want to throw. I'm like, all right, look, like I'm not trying to get you hurt, but at the same time, if you're not throwing a bullpen today, like okay, like that, you're missing out a day of production basically. So I think that there's that fine line too with some kids. Like you have the kid, like Tommy played for me. If I told Tommy to pitch Monday through Friday, he would never say no. Like that's on me as a coach to make sure that I'm not abusing this kid. But you have the other kids that were like, anytime they felt not 100%, they don't want to throw at all. It's like, how do you balance that out and get that point across without coming off as like, win at all costs and let's blow out arms, and make sure that kids understand, like, look, I was an infielder. My arm didn't feel great every day, but I still had to make throws to first base. There's also days where my arm shot and was a no throw day. You just take it off. So I feel like that, explaining that side of it too. And it's a shame that Pete couldn't join us tonight because, Pete graduated, Pete Moore from Haber Worship, for the guys that I don't know him, but Pete graduated Temple before I got there. So he was like a legend, my freshman year, and Pete was the ace pitcher. He caught, and he also closed games. And back when we were at Temple, we played 2 7s on Saturdays and a 9 on Sunday. Pete would pitch the first 7, catch the second 7, and then come back on Sunday and throw the last 3 innings of the 9. And he started his senior year, I think, like and again, I'm just kind of rehashing stories that were told to me about like his legendary status. Like he was like 91, 93, and he was on the draft watch and all that stuff. By the end of that season, he was like 83, 84. And I remember being at a party with Pete as a freshman or sophomore, and he was still hanging out with the guys. And, he kind of confirmed that. And I said, man, like, did you ever think about telling Skip, like, not today, I can't go today, like, not to do it. And Pete looked me dead in the eye and said, absolutely not. And I said, what do you mean? Like, he goes, my guys needed me out in the mound. They needed me to, I wanted to win, and just different story. Like he might've cost himself a draft. He could have been a professional pitcher, perhaps, who knows, but he made that decision. And honestly, like, I don't know if Skip made that decision for him or not, but he supported it. He was fine with it. He was, 100% on board with it. But like, I look at a guy like that, like, total animal. Like he wants to win. I mean, the guy's still pitching. He's 40 something years old. And he's still pitching in the, Perky League and still one of the best players in the damn league.